Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, we just finished an amazing week in Dallas, Texas at Family Reunion. I think you and I both are now sick and recouping.
Right? I know. I said we have the family reunion hangover at this point.
Yes. Well, with 18,000 people, I don't know how we could keep from getting a sniffle or something, right? So I came home with scratchy throat, a little bit of an earache, all kinds of good stuff.
Same here. Yep. Same exact thing. I'm like drinking a ton of hot tea, trying to even have a voice today. I feel like this was the biggest one I've been to ever. I mean, it was crazy. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did hear it was the largest one ever, almost 18,000 people. And I think because Dallas is so centrally located, and to be honest with you, with all the changes that are going on in our industry, I think people are curious. They want to know who knows what's going on, who's going to be on the know and on the front end of all these changes and, things that are coming our way. And it's interesting because, I do masterminds with a lot of other entrepreneurs, and this has been the topic probably at least for the last 2 years about how most industries are really, facing disruption. And my daughter was interviewing with somebody the other day on about movie production. And the lady was just telling her how with Netflix and everything that's going on, their movie industry is like totally somebody moved their cheese, and she said they're having a hard time finding money for funding for different ideas and stuff that we have. And you just don't really think about that. But, our industry is not going to be immune to it either. So I think the reason so many people were there is because they're aware of, what's happening in our marketplaces. And even though they may not totally be affected, they feel that things are changing and they want to make sure that their businesses are, can flourish through it, and that we all come through the disruption with good, solid businesses.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It seemed like so many people that I talked to were there kind of just looking for answers and just wanting to make sure that they weren't missing any information whatsoever when it comes to our industry right now. I don't know about you. Well, I do know because we talked about it, but I was blown away by how many people are listening to the podcast and came up to us, and it just I left feeling so grateful and thankful. It was awesome to get to meet so many people in person too that are listening.
Yeah, it really was. I love it. And then when they take one of the ideas and they do something with it, it makes you feel even better. So yeah, that was a great thing for me also to have people say, we listen to your podcast and we love it. So a little extra pressure for you and I to make sure we keep delivering great content, right? So today, let's kind of do this. Let's go back and let's recap for maybe some that didn't get to go to the sessions we were in, or maybe weren't in some of the meetings we were in, or maybe they did and they heard something different. But what were some of your highlights and things that you kind of picked up from Family Reunion that we can share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we got the privilege of being in front of Gary more really than actually probably going to a lot of the other breakout sessions. And then I know you taught 1 or 2 or 3 classes, I know, and then I had 2. So it was kind of like the schedule was nonstop. But I think anytime, I always tell people, anytime getting in front of Gary, I just don't miss it. And I see why people say they'll hop on a plane or do whatever they can just to get in front of Gary, because everything he says is just so wise. So a lot of my stuff I took from our time with him actually. And I got, we had the privilege of being in the top 200 market centers mastermind with him when we very first got there that day. And I loved so many of the things that he said there. And so I made a few notes from that, first of all. And the one thing that he said, multiple things. It's so hard to pick your favorites. So the one that he said was when he talked about, he was actually talking about ALCs in a market center, but I relate this to agents and just even those who have teams or people around them, and just staying in direct touch with your people, so that when someone's having trouble, you're the first to know instead of the last to know. And that really resonated with me a lot. I thought that was really good because he talked about how we should be asking them, how can I help you build your career? And then how can you help us build the organization? And he drew, and this just rings true in every leader's life and in all real estate agents' lives too. but I loved when he kind of drew this diagram of like a circle at the top and then straight lines to 5 circles below. And then he did then right next to it, he did kind of the same drawing, but it had like a bunch of squiggly lines everywhere with the circles everywhere. And he said the difference between those 2 real estate teams or those 2 market centers or organizations is just the 5 people. And so I just left there thinking, we know that, and I hear it all the time, but the 5 people around you, I mean, literally make or break you.
Yeah.
And it just hit me. It hits me hard every single time. And I don't know why right now it did especially, but I just thought, man, I think it's because right now I'm feeling like I'm in a good place with the people that I'm around and that the people that are around me in all the organizations. But I was just thinking back on times, and I know people who don't have those good 5. And that was just, that's something that always hits me.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've been going into that room for over 20 years. And I remember when I first saw that circle, the circle where you have a big, circle and you write the word you in it. And then you have 5 lines and draw 5 people. And those 5 other lines and circles actually represent who determines wealth for you. So they are your wealth determiners. Yeah. And I remember when he first did that, I thought, is he talking about my assistant? I mean, and I could it was really hard to get my arms around that diagram when I first saw it. And then over time, as I would go learn career visioning and I would go out and try to recruit amazing people into my circle, it took me years, Dana. I'm going to tell you probably a good 12 years to get my first true person in that circle.
Wow.
Because the only people that can actually fit in that circle are territory takers, empire builders, someone who can actually move your business forward. Yeah. And I think when you first start looking at that, I know when I did, I was like, what does that mean? And do I have any? Do I don't have any? And then it would take me years. And actually, Brad was my very first one when he replaced me in my real estate business to be my first empire builder, because he was going to take something that I had gotten to a certain level, and now he was going to be in charge of taking it to a higher level. And it's funny you should say this, because I love it when 2 or 3 of my mentors kind of support each other in certain things. And so one concept that I had just been listening to from another mentor that I have was one about how you can either be normally entrepreneurs want to be a crisis hero. In other words, and realtors are really good at this. I remember being great at this, and I still am. There'll be a fire going on over here, and I'm going to put my fireman hat on, and I'm going to get in there and put out that fire. Well, that's a crisis hero. He said a creative hero is going to be one that does nothing but has people point towards their future. So if you think about that, what we learn in career visioning is that process called, we call it get the book or future self. And Dan Sullivan calls it the DOS question. And that's where you literally set with your key people, whether it's your customers or your key people. And you talk about their bigger, brighter future. And it ties so much back with Gary saying you've got to be the one that knows when your people are in trouble or where they want to, and even more than that, where they want to go. And if they're not getting there, I remember we would put on a flip chart when I would hire somebody, that future self, and, where do you want to be in 5 years? And, what does that look like? And how will we know when you're there? And really the ideal thing is to pull that back out every year and say, let's check and see how you're doing. Right.
Yeah, I love that.
But what we do is we pile our plate so full of so many things that we wait till that key person kind of rattles our cage and says, hey, I'm leaving and going somewhere else. And then you're like, oh crap, and now you're trying to figure out, oh wait, what went off where did this go off the rail? And 9 times out of 10, we've never bothered to sit back down with them and say, hey, are we on track? Or where you say you want to be in 5 years? And if not, how are you going to fix that? And what I need to help you do so that you can get there? Yeah. Anyway, those two kind of tied together to me. And when Gary was saying this in that same mastermind that I was in with you, that's exactly what I thought of. And I love how, this could be true, if we're going to be the heroes to our clients, then we've got to always be sitting down asking them about, where do they want to be in the future
Yeah,
as it
how can we
pertains
help
to
them?
real estate, and how can I help you get there and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was awesome. And you know, what I found about great leaders is their message doesn't change a whole lot. It just, there's such deep and hard concepts that it takes you years and years. And well, let's put it this way. Who was it? Oh, I was talking to somebody and I said, well, if I ask you to pull out your calendar right now, how many career visioning processes would I actually see on your calendar?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, probably not many. And so that's the reality of it. If your calendar and your day-to-day activity has to back up what it is you say you want to have.
Yep.
So interesting. Yeah, I heard the same thing from him, and I've heard that for years. And I still feel like, my 5 doesn't match his 5 yet.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how you can hear something for years though, and then sometimes you just hear it different? I don't know. It's like it hits you in a different spot. You're in a different spot in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then the next thing he talked about that I felt like really also hit me at this time in my life was he talked about kind of making peace with the boredom of focus. And actually just had a conversation before this podcast with another one of the leaders in our region. And she and I were talking about this because we tend to, everybody, it's like you kind of tend to want to have a project all the time. And he was talking about making peace with the boredom of focus when Gary said that. But then he said something else that I thought was really good. He showed us that this motivation video of Kobe Bryant. And then in there, Kobe talked about how, he was the first on the court and the last off the court. And it was because he just wanted the other players to know that he was training longer than they were, and he was training harder than they were. And so then Gary said, when you really want to supercharge your life, you have to put the hours in so that then the other, people or company or office or team or whoever can't actually catch you. And he said, but long hours are not virtuous. But depending on where you are in your life, they can be very strategic. And I thought, I love that because sometimes, we've talked about this before, but I can feel guilty for working so much. And I think that, and I'm not to the point in my life yet where I feel like I've arrived, or not even arrived, but where I feel like I want to stop, because I feel like this is the time where I'm supercharging my life. And so it's okay, that the hours working now aren't going to necessarily be long term. It's that in order to supercharge my life. So when he said that, I just really love that, because he said the individual that changes the world is the one who never gave up, and likely they had strategic times in their life where they really put in the hours and they supercharged their life. And I thought, man, I've never heard him say that before. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's kind of like what he said, about this has got to be your sport. This can't be a means to an end. This is literally has to be like your sport. Just like basketball was Kobe's sport, this is our sport. Real estate is our sport. Yep. And you gotta be willing to put in those extra hours and do whatever it takes. And I think especially now, because we're in a time when, things are changing and we really have to be putting in, for me, quite honestly, I've had to put in the commitment that I'm going to put in the time to learn the technology. And like Gary said, it's never going to be any harder than it is right now, but it is going to take committed time, and for me, that's going to be, I'm going to go find the people that know how to do it. And I'm going to make them commit to the time to spend an hour or 2 hours a week with me to make sure that I'm learning everything that I need to learn. Because if I'm leading people and I can't understand and know the technology, how am I going to lead anybody else into the technology that they're going to need to be ahead of everyone else in the real estate business?
Yep, exactly. I love that too. And I mean, Gary's doing the same thing right now. He sat there and said to us, this is at a time where he's working more hours than ever before, because he has to. This is the time to do it. So yeah, I loved that part.
Yeah. And for me, I think the other thing I heard loud and clear throughout the whole convention was, which I saw this coming because I work with a lot of top agents. I do a lot of calls every week with top people, and we have a lot of top agents who are doing a lot of gross commission and they're not netting enough money that they should be netting. And so the classes that I did two classes. One was on, having big models to build a big business. And the MREA book is still very, very valid today. Yes, MREA 2 is going to come out, but you're not going to see a lot of changes on it. And in there, we got to get back to figuring out where we're off model. If your quality of life is in the tanker, you're off model somewhere. You haven't made a hire that you needed to make. Yeah. If you're not netting the kind of money you need to be making, that's around that 40% range net, which is one of the highest net businesses in the world, then you're paying your people too much. And so just pointing the people back to getting back on model, and realizing that we tend to want to put creativity over models, and that's where we get out of sync. And so just reminding people to go back and reread the MREA book, read it over and over and over again, and go back and say, where did I decide it? When and why did I decide it was better to hire a buyer agent before I hired my second assistant?
Yeah.
And when and where did I decide that it was good to pay my people 90-10 splits? That's running a brokerage, not running a real estate business. And so one of the big themes I saw at the convention was getting people to get back on a model that's been proven to work, that will net you the most amount of money in your business, and go back and reread. Because I know when I read a book, I only hear what I'm ready to hear, and I need to go back and reread it most of the time to get the pieces I missed the first time.
Yeah, I was glad there was a lot of focus on that at this year's convention, because I really felt like there's so many agents that need it. I mean, I know we have agents in market centers that are in offices that have their teams on 90-10 splits, and excuse me, they wonder why they're not making any money. And it's just, they're so far off model. I truly don't know that they know how to get back on model, but just pouring back into the MREA, it's I don't know, it's crazy. It's definitely an issue right now.
One thing that I loved, and you hear this a lot, like if I sit in the top masterminds, I'll hear this a lot. And I remember being at this place myself where you're kind of almost arguing for your limitations. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, I think a question got asked about, I think when people don't have the right people, they keep trying to ask questions around everything, but it's not the right person. And so one things I wrote down was, you don't manage people to be successful, you hire great people.
I love that.
So if you've got a lot of issues and things aren't happening, 9 times out of 10, you've got the wrong person. That's the first. And we want to look everywhere but there. We want to try to say, what can we do to help them? What can we do to fix them? They're loyal, they're good people, but if they're not getting the job done, they're not the right person.
Yeah.
I think that's real hard.
I love when Gary talked about that, and he gave the example of, he said, I wrote down, like I was trying to write as fast as I possibly could. He said, the team is what wins the championship. And teams and coaches, they blow up the team and they trade players all the time and they do all that stuff until they get the team that wins the championship, because it's always the right people. And he said, every time that you're not getting where you want to be, it's because you don't have the right people. You don't have the winning team. And he said that when you don't have what you want, you're missing a relationship. And then there was something else that he said with that. He said, you can't get a Kobe sometimes because you haven't done what it takes to be a Kobe. And I thought, gosh, that's so true.
That is so true. I think back to when I opened our first office and I hired, some of our first team leaders. And I think about now that I've really been 20 something years at this, I look back and go, well, first of all, I didn't get the right person because I wasn't the right person. Yeah. So it took me 20 years of diving in and going to every class and trying and failing my way forward and doing everything I possibly could to eventually get to a place that I could actually attract a talented person that could move my needle forward.
Yeah.
And I get that now looking back, but at the time it was so confusing and so hard to understand because I had never really experienced kind of like what a Kobe would feel like on your team.
Yeah.
But once you get a Kobe on your team and you see what that feels like, now it's easier to go out and do it again. One, because you probably become the person that can attract them. And then number two, and then the other thing I notice is when someone can't really attract talent, they think there isn't anyone out there that's like a Kobe. They don't even see a Kobe.
Yep.
They think we just making up that you could actually ever go get a Kobe player, right? But the truth is it's because they're not the person that would attract that kind of person. So they can't even imagine. And so then the more they don't believe in it, the more they can't get it. It's just kind of like a vicious circle.
Yep. Totally true.
A couple of other things I wrote down is, for a period in life to be successful, you do the things, this kind of like what you said, the things you don't always love.
Yep.
You know, and then if you don't plan where your time is going to go, then it will go without you. Choose for yourself where you want your time to go.
Yeah. They talked about that a lot. And I went to Jeff Woods and Jay Papasan's How Billionaires Set Goals.
Oh, good. I miss that every year.
Oh, it was great. Well, first of all, the room was packed. I mean, like the fire marshals came in and made people leave because there were so many people in there. It was crazy, but it was really, really, really good. And they talked about that a lot in there. And a couple of the things I wrote down, exactly what you just said, but he said, think big, go small, and trust that the dominoes will fall, which I just always need to be reminded of that. He put up a quote from Gary: the purpose of a goal is to be appropriate in the moment that you are trying to do that. But the biggest thing that I took from their class was identifying your top 3 values. And I've seen that so many times, but I've never done that. They flashed up all of those, they actually sell them now. Domino cards is what they call them, but they're all those different value words. And you literally go through, and they had us do it in the class. You go through and you look at all the words, and you put a green dot next to anyone that speaks to you. And then after that, you go back to round 2, and all the ones that you put a green dot by, then you go by and, you circle the ones that really, really speak to you out of those. And so you keep going until you get down to identifying your top 3 values in your life. And then he said, basically, then at that point, you know what your values are, and then you just have to line up your values with your goals. And I was glad that they made us do it in there, because I'd never done that before, probably because I'd never taken the time to. But it was neat. It was just a really cool exercise.
So give me an example of what some of those values were, and then how you narrow them down.
So, man, there were a ton. Like, I think I have it on my phone right now. But so Jay and Jeff shared theirs. There was a whole list. I mean, it's got to be, let me try to find it. It's got to be, here it is. Yep. Line up your values with your goals. I bet you there's probably 100 words on this page. Anywhere from accountability, achievement, adventure, balance, connection, freedom, faith, excellence, honesty. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Family, recognition. And so you go down and you pick the ones that are most, like you. and then you do it 4 times until you get to your 3. So like my 3 were faith, growth, and freedom, because faith is obviously really important to me. Growth is because I feel like when you stop growing, you die, and I don't ever want to stop growing. And then freedom has always been important to me, because I don't ever want to feel like I can't do something, financially, when I want to do it, where I want to do it, whatever. So it's like you narrow down those 3. And then when you're looking at what your goals are your goals in line with really what you value, which are those words. So like for Jay, his were family, impact, and abundance. And so everything that he's doing, he's making sure that his goals are lining up with him having an abundant life, making an impact on people, and including his family in it. So it was really a cool exercise. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And I just had never done that before.
So what were some of the key things because in the topic, how to think like a billionaire, or what is it?
Yeah. How billionaires set goals.
Oh, set goals.
Yeah. So that's why he was saying you really can't set goals until you know what your main 3 values are. Because if you have goals that aren't in line with your values, then you're always going to feel like you're conflicted in everything that you do. And then he said, which this came out of the one thing, but he said, you really, you have to have your purpose, then your priority, then your productivity, because you can't have productivity without knowing your priorities. And you have to have a sense of purpose to know what your priorities are. So like it all kind of started with lining up and identifying what your values were, so that then you can actually set goals appropriately to how they need to be. And he said this is exactly like what Gary follows to set his goals, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think when Jeff spoke at our thing Friday night, one of the key things he said is we're not going small enough.
Yep. That's exactly what they talked about in this. He just said, what did he say that I love? Oh, I know what he said. He said we don't go small enough because we don't have a relationship with our goals. Like he said, every morning, do you wake up and look at your 411, just like you check your email, and just like you to get on social media or do whatever that you do. But a lot of us don't, we we think big, but we're not going small because we don't have a relationship with our goals. And I just thought that was so true. So yeah, I thought that was great. I loved going to that. That was one of the best things that I went to.
So, and then what was the other panel that you were on? What was your other thing? Leadership or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I had the first one was how to have a leadership career inside of Keller Williams, which was really great. That one was good. And then the second one was talking all about online lead generation. And man, that one was packed and it was so good. I was on with one other girl and one other guy. And they shared such great things. But Nikki, one of the ladies on the panel who has a team, shared all about how she's grown her business through these Facebook groups. And it was crazy to me. Like she built, it was awesome. She builds these groups on Facebook, and like her main group has 13,000 people in it from her town. And she doesn't allow any other real estate agents to be in there. And all she does is bring value and, real estate related, and then a lot of non-real estate related value to that group. And it's made her literally like the mayor of that town. And it was awesome.
So pretty much you have to be a member of that town to be in the Facebook group.
Yep. She has specific questions that you answer. And like one of them is, where do you live? And then 2 is, do you have a realtor? And so there's and I think she had one more. I can't remember what the third one was, but she approves everybody that joins and every comment that's in the group. She runs target ads to that group. I mean, she's hardcore with it, and she's in Florida, and I can't remember. I'm trying to think of where she was, but it was really great. I mean, I was wanting to take notes when I was up there, and I didn't have anything to take notes with, but it was great.
Yeah, and that makes sense though, because I think we're seeing a lot of like people making small communities to be connected more. I mean, I think about some of my Facebook groups and stuff that I'm on. I probably spend a little bit more. I feel like I get a little more information out of those groups than I do just broadly out of Facebook.
Well, yes. And so she said that there's a difference. She said that people have a Facebook page to go to get information. They're a part of a Facebook group because they want to collaborate and be a part of a community. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times realtors just have a Facebook page, but they're totally missing the groups. But really the groups are where the interaction is and the community and the collaboration happens. And when you're bringing value to a group like that, she talked about how she does different groups for different neighborhoods. And then she has her main big group. And then she has different groups for interests, like, like a mom's group or a, we play tennis group or whatever. But she's still interacting. And at the end of the day, they know that she's kind of the local mayor for real estate in her town. And it was really insightful. I thought she did a great job.
That's awesome. That's great stuff. So we're about out of time, Dana. Is there any last thoughts or things that you think that were really impactful from Family Reunion that you would like to share before we end today?
There's just so much. I feel like we could do 4 episodes on everything from Family Reunion. I think the only thing I didn't share yet is just we're in such a time right now where I bought the t-shirt that Gary had on the first day too, because he talked about organic growth versus disruptive growth and how we're so used to just growing organically. But we're at a time in our industry and we're just at a time in life right now where if we want to be disruptive, if we want to grow, we have to be really disruptive. And he said, you can either disrupt or you can be disruptive. And I thought for realtors and teams right now, that's so important. Like we've got to start thinking of how we can really disrupt our markets so that we can keep our people and be relevant and be able to bring them value so that they're not going, to Zillow or whatever. To be able to do their real estate business, because it's a relationship business at the end of the day. And we can't just let that organically happen anymore. We've got to be disruptive with it.
Yeah. Good point.
Yep.
Yeah. And the thing is, being disruptive means you cannot do what you've always done.
Yep.
And you cannot, just keep expecting the business to come to you the way it has. Like even the example you gave with the Facebook page, that is exceeding and doing something unique and different. And Zillow can't do that with people. They can't have that one-on-one relationship. And so that's kind of the lens we have to see things through is how do we use technology, but still have that one-on-one relationship, exceed those expectations, go above and beyond, build deeper relationships, find out who in our databases are people that, one of the things I said in my group where I taught is, why are you not inviting like your best referral business clients to our Fierce Conversations classes?
Yeah.
Why are you not inviting them to career visioning? Those are the kind of gifts that nobody else can give your clients. And I promise you, if you do something like that, you will get I would be surprised if you don't get multiple deals from someone who now feels beholden because you gave them a gift that is so much more than a cookie jar with their family name on it. I mean, that is something they'd be able to use for a long time. And so I was talking to my group about think differently about what you can find out who's in your database and what kind of things can you give them that no one else can give them, that they would be so appreciative and create such beholdenness that they're going to want to refer people to you.
I love that. Well, you're giving them a gift that's investing in themselves. And that's, like you said, way better than a cutting board or a cookie jar.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, you're right, Dana. We could do probably more sessions on everything we've learned at Family Reunion. So, but I want to tell everybody, remember, if you have a question or a comment or something you'd like for Dana and I to talk about, please be sure and submit it to us at info@everything life and real estate. And if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast and have Dana and I help you with a situation, an opportunity, or maybe just a challenge that you're up against, submit your name to us at info@everything life and real estate. And the more you tell us about your situation, the more we're actually going to be able to help you on the podcast. And if you'd like to do something for Dana and I, please reach out and give us a review on whatever platform you listen to your podcast on. And then we'd love for you to share this with anybody in the real estate business that you think that would benefit from listening to our podcast. And Dana, I just want to say thanks for joining us, and I hope you get feeling better.
Thanks. You too. Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.